Let's go just that.
So since the last video, I've made some really good progress. Got the engine, I'm working on getting the engine all mounted up, getting the oil cooler on, and then pinning the necessary things as well. Getting ready to be able to put all the suspension back on because that's a fairly straightforward process. I was fortunate enough to be able to go up to the toy maker's shop, and a special thank you to David and the team. I was able to borrow their Waterjet to cut out the plates for my engine mounts that I designed in CAD. They needed a little tweaking, but I was able to get them to work great. And the Waterjet made quick work of cutting the 3/16 inch steel that I used to make the mounts. So I finally got the engine back in place. You can see how close it is to the firewall now. And I'm going to cut the brackets tomorrow, the new engine mounts, and hopefully get those tacked up and finish welded by the end of this week. And I'll have the engine back in the car, which will be really exciting. So this is the piece that I waterjetted out. I put these little cutouts so that it'll be easier to bend it. What I'll do is I'll fill it back in with weld to bend it. What I did here, because I don't have a press brake, just bend it against this jaw of the vise. This vise is really big, so it's probably not going to be a big deal to do this. It's just going to take some time. I'm going to bend this 90, and then this is just a little less of an angle. Once I got the bend started, I was able to put the piece in the metal in the vise like this, and then use this really big adjustable wrench to continue the bend. What I'm looking for is to get this to 90 degrees, and then this is something where close where it lands and I can weld it to the engine plate. Now that I've bent this to the proper dimensions and angles, I've got my plate. I'm going to go ahead and mock it up on the engine and make sure that the angles are right, and then I'll tack it together. You can see here I've got one of the engine mounts mocked up. This side, the passenger side, I had to do a lot of trimming, so I finally have it in and actually did not have to lower the subframe at all. I was worried I was going to have to, and actually prematurely cut the bolts out on this side, which I will be fixing with the original bolts again, and I actually just took out the driver's side engine mount to weld. This is what the engine mounts look like. I had to adjust some of the holes because I did not take good measurements. I should have taken measurements off the engine, not the existing mounts. And then these holes will have to be filled. And I've got this tacked up. This is all 3/16 inch steel, which is going to make it very strong, really easy to weld as well. Here the engine mounts are all welded up. It's time to put them back in the car. Now I've got the engine mounts in, subframe bolted up. I've actually got to take them back out to do some welding and painting on them. I want to verify that they did fit as designed. Here is the first engine mount. This is for the driver's side. All ready, sanded up, ready to be painted. So I'm going to give it a quick coat of paint and then install it. I ended up getting this real simple thermostatic sandwich adapter kit from Doral. I think I ordered it on Jegs. The part number is 15731, and this is a specific one for a small block Chevy because the Chevy oil filter is a larger diameter. It's 3 1/8 inch versus 2 3/4, which is what most cars are. So this has the necessary pieces to attach this, and this has some 3/8 NPT ports, and it also will not flow all the oil to the oil cooler until the oil reaches 180 degrees. And that's key because you want to make sure that you're not overcooling your oil and allowing it to get up to temp so it lubricates the engine properly. But you also don't want it to get too hot where it breaks down and is not lubricating the engine. That's where you mess up things like spinning bearings and messing up cams and stuff like that. These 3/8 MPT to 1/2 inch hose bar fittings are included, and these are 3/8 MPT ports, but I'm actually going to be using 3/8 MPT to -10 AN adapters, so I have more flow. If you restrict the flow too much, like you may with these hose fittings, you're going to see a larger pressure drop than necessary. You really should only see 5 to 7 psi pressure drop when you add an oil cooler. Anything more than that, you have too much restriction in the system. It's not going to flow the oil well enough to cool it effectively. And then I've got this Wicks filter. This is a short filter that fits around my kicked out oil pan. The O-rings leave a bit to be desired. They were a little oversized and kind of had to be squeezed into the grooves. And before I install this on the car, I'm going to go ahead and put some oil on the O-rings so to make sure that I get a good seal. If you look down here, it's kind of hard to see, but I've got the oil filter and the adapter in place. I haven't tightened it because I need to clock it once I get the hoses so I can clear the exhaust here and the engine mounts as well, which are missing right now. I'm going to go ahead and put the AN fittings into my oil filter adapter, and then I'm going to get everything set up so I can measure out the lines for my oil cooler. So we got the adapters in. The plan is to run the lines kind of up in between the header and the steering box here, go up around the engine mount and then towards the front of the car. Still figure out whether or not to put the oil cooler in front of or behind the radiator. So continue to look at that. This is the hose I got. It's Earl's, actually not Earl's, it's Mr. Gasket brand, and the reason why I chose this is because it's a push lock hose that's rated to 360 degrees, 360 psi, and I think it's good to like over 250 psi, so it should be adequate for oil. A lot of the other push locks hose are not rated that high. You can see it's got like a nice braid. You may not be able to see that, but I think it'll work great, and it was on sale. So this was about the easiest hose I ever pushed on. Just gave it a little oil and then push it on. The nice thing here is this backing piece is metal, not rubber, so you don't have a chance of pushing off the hose or it getting damaged. A lot of the other push-on have rubber ones and they always fall off. Here I've got the one, this is like the outlet pulled up, and basically I'm going to have route the hose like so. It's got some space in between the steering box and the exhaust, and then use some hose clamps to clamp it to the frame rail, and it's going to go out along the frame rail to the front of the car. So this is actually how the engine sits. You can see this is the one engine mount. I've got the other one out right now, filling the holes, and then I'm going to grind it smooth. And then I've got also did some oil cooler mounting. This is the piece that I made like 6 years ago to go, or probably 5 years ago, to replace the front stiffener bar between the two legs of the frame in the front. I had to cut out the original one because it was not going to, like it was interfering with the placement of the radiator. And this was a stiffener bar. It also supports the radiator as well. And you can see I've welded on these two tabs to hold the oil cooler as well. This is how everything kind of sits, and I'll show it once it's in the car. But you see I've got a radiator mount, which is from Granny's Speed Shop. I've got this fabricated bar I made and the mounts and everything. But what I did here was I've got my oil cooler here that I purchased, and I just cut out these tabs from 3/16 inch steel, weld them on. It'll hold it like so with some 8mm bolts. And this places the radiator, or not the radiator, the oil cooler kind of to the left in front of the radiator, but next to the power steering cooler. So it should still get good flow and some good cooling out of this. See, I've got the oil lines run now for the oil cooler coming from my adapter. These are -10. Kind of feed next to the radiator. And then they come in over here. This is not focusing. Next to that, that's the power steering cooler there. And then the oil cooler kind of sitting next to it, not really in front of it. The lines will come out. So now that that's all painted, I can go ahead and mount that piece for the radiator support. And then I'm also finalizing the engine mounts so I can get rid of the support bar. The other thing I'm working on is I relocated my power steering reservoir kind of more away from the pump itself. You can see I've got a nice -10 line now that needs to be tightened up. And then I'm also going to take the power steering pump off and rebuild it because it has been leaking for a while and I just got a rebuild kit. So that should fix that. Eventually, this alternator is awfully close to the hood. So I would probably like to do a low mount. I'm not sure if I'm going to have time to do that this time around. I may just try to clearance because it's interfering with the louvers. I can probably clearance the louvers enough to get it to clear. Here's the rear end. I still need to fix my mini spool or get a new one or get new spider gears and weld them. Have not done that yet. Kind of tried out some paint on it. And I'm also going to paint the calipers front and rear. That's something I just never did. I would like to do as well. Hey guys, thank you for checking out my video and commenting everything. I know that you guys are probably staying busy as well. I'm definitely anxious to get my car back on the road and driving and really kind of off jack stands because I just love how the thing looks when it's on the ground. And hopefully around July timeframe, I can find a 7th event or something to go to. Maybe do some street driving with the car as well. So thanks for checking it out, watching, subscribing. You guys are great. Have a good one.